Do we have his volume up?
I can't hear it either.
I thought I heard. Speak again, clerk.
There you go.
Yeah.
God, is that you? So freaky. I'm just bent over my shoulder like that.
We're good now?
We're good.
Okay. All right, it is just past 7 o'clock, so we're going to begin our meeting. If you will stand, I'll ask Ben if he'll lead us in a word of prayer, and Brandy, will you lead us in the pledge tonight?
Well, let's pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for yet another beautiful day. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight in this meeting. We just ask that we could be the examples you'd have us to be. Father, please continue to be with our students and faculty and staff as they enjoy the remainder of their summer. Just keep them safe, Father. We ask you to lead, guide, and direct us. And most of all, we thank you for your Son, our Savior. We pray this in his name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May be seated. And we'll begin tonight and ask Mr. Skills to call the roll, please.
Shane Connor.
Here.
Ben Couples. Here. Jeff Harris.
Here.
Becky Hutchinson.
Here.
Clay Rogers.
Present.
Brandy Cherry.
Here.
All present.
All right, we do have a quorum present, so we'll officially call the meeting to order for July. And the first item we have tonight is a recommendation to accept the board agenda.
Make a motion to accept the board agenda.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion about the agenda tonight? If none, all those in favor of accepting as is, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is set. Next, we have the consent agenda, so we look for a motion to approve that.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
A second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. There is no discussion on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. Next tonight, we want to put a spotlight on a very great success story in our school district. Just got word a couple of weeks back regarding youth science and Miss Goff. And Troy, I'll have you talk a little bit more about that.
Well, and I just recognized this as I was walking through the main office, seeing that the Independent is also running an article. So Kendall, thank you for writing that article. Appreciate that. Again, this kind of caught us flat-footed. We didn't see this coming until it actually happened. Again, this is their inaugural year to recognize 2 educators across the nation that represents this Innovative Educator Award. And Darlene, with her past year's experience and practice with the youth science results, from the junior high setting where she has intentionally, as the article reads and also as this news release that is included in your board packet reflects, she's been very intentional with the content for that youth science aptitude and interest survey. The results of that gave her, as she described, and I think in the article, several one-on-one conversations with the kids, encouraged them about what opportunities they could pursue when they started high school content. What I hope gained out of the article and hope to gain as we inform more of our community about this opportunity, that our families are aware of the resources that are available, and where we don't just shrug our shoulders as a junior or a senior wondering what my future is going to be. We're going to be able to identify some more high aptitudes and interests, hopefully matching that with courses and dual enrollment opportunities, work-based learning opportunities that our students in the high school setting will be able to experience. Our junior high students will start this upcoming school year next month having CTE courses, and those CTE courses are structured to where you're raising the awareness at the middle school grades of what career options are out there. So hopefully we're vetting the kids and their families to realize that there are some significant opportunities for future careers that don't necessarily require only a bachelor's degree, but they can have possible career wage with something less. And hopefully with us partnering with TCAP, get a lot of that content done at the high school level before they leave high school. So that will, again, for the high school setting, that'll help their behavior, that'll help their attendance, that'll help their academic success, because they'll want to concentrate, just like many of our good programs of our CTEs already realize. You don't hear about people failing out of some of our courses at the CTE programs because they know that the future can be very promising. So it's all a win-win, and this is like a cherry on top to have Darlene recognized for this award.
All right. Congratulations to her, and very timely with the focus on those CTE things coming up. Next, we have delegations. We have no delegations here tonight to address the board, but we had one scheduled, but it'll be moved, correct?
It'll be moved to August. She had a conflict with her schedule and had requested an opportunity to be able to address the board at the August meeting. So what has been included in your board packet will be repeated for the August meeting because it's her same agenda, same request.
Next is an item that will be on our agenda moving forward beginning this month pursuant to new state law. It's an opportunity for public comment on any item that we take action on. No one is here tonight to do so, but that opportunity would be available in future meetings on actionable agenda items. First action we do need to take tonight is look at some board policies from the TSBA and a recommendation to approve several. You see, we have many this time of year to look through, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to do that through your packet. So at this time, I would just open the floor with any questions or about those policies, and if there's the desire to approve these all at one time, or if anyone sees the need to remove one separately to talk about. Or if there's any you want to talk
No,
about.
I would say the same thing. I am ready to address any individual policy if you want to look at it compared to what, again, in the cases to where a majority of those we had policy already. So it's a revision of what we currently had. But there were a few occasions where it was a new policy to introduce into our policy manual. Again, this is coming off of the General Assembly this past session. And June is always, this is the June updates that the TSBA works. It's not an automatic, we subscribe to their support to where, as a school district, we benefit from that prescription or that subscription to get an update from them that any type of policy as it either conflicts or needs to be revised or edited in some way to address new law, then that's what their subscription provides us. So, you know, as far as I've been a director, we've been involved with it. I think the Pipkins prior to also had that subscription purchase.
Does anyone have?
If there's no discussion, I make a motion we approve these collectively.
Okay, all right.
Does this include the school board, the cell phone policy?
No, that's a separate item.
All right. Yeah, I second it then.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded, but is there any discussion, or does anyone feel there is any that needs to be separated from the group? All right, if there are no discussion, we will just vote on these collectively as presented. And the motion's been made and seconded, and there's no further discussion, so all those in favor of doing so, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, they are all approved to be updated in our policy manual. Next, we do have that policy recommendation on the revision of 6.312. That is the use of personal communication devices and electronic devices that we began the discussion on last month and moved to the appointed time tonight. Any additional conversation can be had about that at this point? Do you have any input on?
Well, and just like, you know, here in the conversation last month that we discussed, and going back and looking at what the policy reads now, you know, I just want to make sure, and that was the 5 bulleted that I raised with your board packet. These are currently in the policy now that probably with better fidelity needs to be followed. So that's why I made the recommendation, or just at least a consideration, that adhering to what the existing policy is now and doing it with fidelity may satisfy the very concerns that have been raised from last month's meeting. May.
I saw in there that it says that they should not be using their data plans, and that's something that's impossible to police. So, to me, if you have a cell phone on your person and you pull it out of your pocket and you're using it, you know, that's you can't go to everybody and say, hey, let me see your phone. Are
Right.
you on AT&T or Verizon right now, or are you on the Wi-Fi? So, I mean, and in the workforce today, we all struggle with it. people being on their cell phones all the time, it just becomes a part of their body, and they can't put them down. Their cell phone is like, it's like they idolize it, like it's their God they wake up to every morning, and they can't put it down. It affects their livelihood, their ability to perform, and and we set the precedence, I think, starting at a young age where we allow them to bring it to school. And, to me, there's really, I know that people argue that you have to have it for an app or you have to have it to learn or whatever, but I mean, every one of us, me here and you guys sitting around that table, made it through high school without a cell phone at school every day. So I don't see why we can't do that now. We supply a phone in the office for people to use, so I think that they need to remain in their pocket, in their car, or in their locker, and use the phone in the office if they need it. That's the way I feel about it, and the reason is because I have to deal with people on their phones all day at my work, and even you go to a hardware store, you can't even get, like I was going to get a bag of concrete the other day, and the kid came out and loaded my truck, and I'll try to talk to him, tell him thank you. He's already back on his phone, scrolling through whatever he was scrolling through. Like, it just takes over people's lives, and I think that the longer we can do without it, the better off they'll be, and the better off we'll be because of it. Because, like I said, it's impossible to police if they're on Wi-Fi or if they're on their data plans. And it would be easier to police if they pull it out of their pocket or their bag or their locker or their car than it will be to police what they're looking up, what they're using it for, and how they're using it. So my vote is no cell phones.
Well, with, if you read the policy, like Troy said, with fidelity, with a stern hand, I think you could achieve that. But, I mean, it's gonna take work on the behalf of the,
Well, and, if I may jump in with that, it would, if, going back to this policy as it reads now, part of the fidelity would be making sure you're communicating frequently with the students about what the policy reads and is, and hold them accountable. Like what Clay said, I'm not saying, and I don't think it was ever intended with the scrutiny of requiring them to show that they're on the school's data plan instead. The justification for that, I know, is the school's data plan has embedded filters that limit the number of sites they can go to. It doesn't remove all of them, because the junior high in the past has purchased additional filtering system that gives them a hit when some of these quite creative students can bypass those safeguards. But it does limit some of that access. That's the whole intention of having the use of the school's site. And we have sufficient bandwidth with our devices to supply our process, or our devices and bandwidth rival Freed-Hardeman down the road with their services, with about the same number of folks. But, it's thousands of connections to it. You would be, you'd be surprised. I was surprised the first time I heard how many thousand are on our sites. But again, when you think about each one who has a laptop, each one who has a cell phone, or maybe two iPads, all those devices get connected to it. So it's easy to have one person, 3 to 4, devices on that site.
Clay, if they have it in their locker or in their pocket during class time, that's feasible. But when the bell rings and they're outside waiting on the school bus, how's it gonna be policed then?
Well, if they're outside waiting on a school bus, it'll be after school, right?
Yeah.
So no, I mean,
Once they get out of the school building and the learning's over, then get after it. But from whatever, 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, I don't really see a need between classes or at lunch or any time.
unless requested by a teacher for school, for that particular subject.
Yeah, but that
app
kind of
use or?
sucks because my son's not gonna have a cell phone and then, so he don't get the same education as kids sitting beside him whose parents give him a cell phone. So you're limiting the education a kid can get because they got a hard-headed dad that won't buy him a cell phone. Being honest, man.
Yeah, I don't think everybody has a cell phone. I know a lot of people do, but Jeff has a valid point. We can't teach to just people that have cell phones because there's gonna be some kids that can't afford them or their parents won't let them have them
Exactly.
because,
This guy.
whatever reason, so. I don't think that we can focus our curriculum around an app or a cell phone.
Now, I would say that I don't believe there's any curriculum that we have that
No.
requires a cell phone in the hand. Of course, that's, like I said last month, we do have enough devices to have for every student. Again, that's either, most cases, a Chromebook. Junior high in the past has used them more frequently than any other school, but, and then some at the high school also have a whole collection of iPads. So there's sufficient devices, that's true. But now, what I learned last month, what you confirmed, Ben, was that they're using it for like their dual enrollment. See, we don't necessarily dictate what a Jackson State requirement is, or we don't lay down the law for that because they come in, if we give them access to our students for enrollment, they are teaching the curriculum. You know, often they're, you know, they have all of their posting of their assignments and stuff are done through software through the school, or the school specific, Jackson State or Freed-Hardeman or whatever. Canvas is a platform I believe that they use, or at least that's what I've been told in the past when we were investigating that with the possibility of having to offer a virtual school if COVID continued. So.
Any
Could the
additional?
same work
Go
during
ahead.
the dual enrollment be completed on one of the devices that we provide or a laptop? I mean, if are we supposed to supply the dual enrollment kids with a laptop or anything of that nature, or is that something that they're supposed to have themselves because they're going to college now?
Well, the student, if they're in a dual enrollment class, it'd be the same student that we already provide a device for. As far as the platform that they use, though, how they deliver their information, I don't, how they post their job or their work assignments, I'm just assuming, because in the past, we've had those conversations with Freed-Hardeman, Jackson State. I personally don't know. They don't run those ideas by me.
I don't think it was multiple tasks that were required to use their personal device. I just think that it was specific, that they asked them to look up a specific thing in order to do that class. And they tried it on the notebook and it would work, so then they had to use their personal device, maybe once or twice. So, I mean, if the policy is stated or passed or whatever, and it says you can't use it, then maybe they know that coming in and, they just don't use it.
Well, and I'm not saying that, sometimes the hiccup that we have here in this office, when we can't get access to something, we just have to kind of dig a little bit deeper and get that access. It can be restored. It's just there's certain things that are filtered out. Social media, Twitter, Facebook, they're filtered out here. You don't have access to them.
Go
I
ahead.
think some of the students, I know in my daughter's case, she prefers to use her personal device in the dual enrollment, her laptop, as opposed to the ones at school, and it's just,
They're
she's
used to it.
familiar with it, she uses it at home, she brings it to school,
My son does the same
and
thing.
uses it at school.
He's got a laptop
and
he uses.
That's
Do
her
they connect to the
preference.
school's data
Yes.
plan? I mean, internet access.
Yes.
Yeah, if they have a laptop and they connect to the school's Wi-Fi, then that's.
But a laptop is still considered personal device, though,
Yeah,
is
that's
it
their
not?
personal
That's
device.
their personal
I mean,
device.
that's,
If they can't
it's
afford a
still,
laptop, but they have a phone, then now they have another argument.
But they can't get on a data plan with a laptop, right?
Hotspot,
They can
yes.
hotspot that to their phone,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't think most of them are, they're probably using the school Wi-Fi, but,
And then you got your smartwatches too.
yes.
So most of the reason to be able to utilize personal whatever is usually geared towards dual enrollment, it sounds like. So with that being said, middle school and junior high, like, I asked a teacher, a couple of administrators, and they said there's no place for it there. Both of them, in the middle school and the junior high. I said, what do they need a cell phone for? All it did is I couldn't imagine if me and that dude would have had cell phones when we were that age. It would have been terrible. And, so for that matter, is there any way to eliminate them out of the building for the most part, or out of people's pockets at least?
Well, we can go back to, you can be there's levels of restriction. If you remember when you guys were in school,
Oh, yeah.
if you had a
Sneaking
device.
that
it
big
was-
old phone.
Yeah.
Just-
Well, if you had a device, it was, what we had before is you had to keep them stored away. You may have one in your backpack, but it better not be outside, even if it was turned off. Then it got to be, the progression was, well, you gotta have it powered down. And it's kind of grown out of that. Of course, like what Clay was saying about they can use his phone in the office. When you guys were in school, and when Becky was in school, Ben was in school, there were things called, which is uncommon now, pay phones. You remember the pay phones in the cafeteria? We used to have them in the
Yeah.
cafeteria in the lobby. The companies removed those. We didn't tell them to remove them. They removed them on their own because there was no benefit for them. There were no funds for them. But when y'all were in school, we had those pay phones.
They were phasing them out when they could bring cell phones in.
Well, they knew that cell phones were replacing it. Yeah, you're right. So,
Sorry, I had to turn my heat on. Low 50s, high 40s up here.
I feel sorry for you.
You should. Listen, I don't, I know it sounds extreme to a lot of people, but I just, I see people every day, all day with their phone in their hand, and I see how it affects their lives. And it's not just, you'll see somebody pick up their phone just to scroll. It's out of a habit. It's just like smoking a cigarette or taking a chew of tobacco or drinking a beer or whatever. It just becomes so habitual that you find yourself doing it when it's not even necessary at all, and it absolutely affects their everyday life. So we're supposed to be training people to go into the workforce, and this absolutely inhibits their craftsmanship and their ability to be good workers. There's no, I see it every day, all day. And I think that if we can do anything to slow that down, and I know when they get to college, there they go, or if they go to college, but at least the guys going to trades, I think we have an ability here to make a difference, and I think that we should take it. We have an opportunity to do something, to possibly change that. Just even if, I know it's not going to change the world, but it's going to change the people that live in our community, and we want to produce a good workforce. That's what we're committed to with our new agenda. So I think that this would help that. I believe that.
Is there any other discussion or a motion to be made?
Reading over the policy, I absolutely think that is the intent of the policy. The question is, in my mind, are the teachers and administrators enforcing it like the policy reads? I think that's more the problem than anything. When this policy was written, it was written with the same mindset you have right now. But it's just become an everyday thing, and even teachers are using it, I'm sure. Every break they get, they're just as habit forming, on Facebook as a student is. So, the reality of it is, it's gonna take the teachers and administration to enforce it, no matter what policy you come up with.
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's a gray area, it's gonna be impossible to police, and they're not gonna do it, so. I mean, like Shane mentioned, it's gotta be black and white, I think, and it has to be, school district wide. You can't have, he made a valid point where, you can't have a separate rule for the high school and East Chester and junior high, middle school or whatever. You gotta have a district wide policy, and it's gotta be black and white, and that, the way that policy reads is, it leaves it up to the teacher's discretion, and, if Ms. Smith lets me get my cell phone out during the class, then I'm gonna go over to Mr. Black's classroom and I'm gonna get my cell phone out, and then he's gonna be upset because he's trying to police something that Ms. Smith ain't doing. So, it's just, it's gonna create issues if it stays the way it is, and it's not policed the same by every single teacher.
Well, I think that students have to deal with differences in teachers on every aspect of the school day, not just whether they can keep their phone in their pocket or not. Some of them might let you use a pen, some of them might not. I mean, that's just making adjustments, according to what class you were in. And as far as, I guess I can say this since I've been a classroom teacher, but if the teacher has control of his or her classroom, then they can make sure that phone's put away. If they don't, then yeah, there might be some chaos. But, and I think that goes back to, what Ben said. That's the teachers, are gonna have to enforce it. No matter what policy it is.
A student's unauthorized use of a device will result in disciplinary action,
Mm-hmm.
period.
Yeah. And if you don't have them, period, they're gonna sneak them there, and you still got the disciplinary problem.
That's right.
They're gonna try to bring it, even if you say they can't bring it. And there are situations beyond using it, single parents, and there are times, I think there are justifiable times. It's not 1993 or 4 or 5. It's a different world, and you're talking about getting out of high school and going to work and learning that discipline now. Well, they learn the discipline now not to use it, so they'll know how to do that when they go to work not to use it. Right now, if you make them not have it, you're not teaching them the discipline, self-discipline of when to have it out or to listen to an authority figure when a teacher says not have it out. So when they get out in the real world, they haven't learned that discipline of obeying the rules as set, and the rules will be set, and the teacher must enforce the rules, and therefore they're learning discipline and not being forced upon them, at this level. I think it does teach them something for when they get out. It's going to be really tough to monitor, I believe, in this day and age, I agree with being a slave to it. You get a disagreement with me at all.
No,
It's going to be it's not, when I graduated in 1989, it's part of life, and you got to learn how to handle it. Learn how to you have that self-discipline, and the teachers are just going to have to follow what is written and see how we can make that effective. But it's going to be very hard to just take it away, I believe, in this day and time. But we can do one or two. If there is no motion, it stays as written. If we want to look at changing something, there needs to be a motion made, and it's specifically what that would look like. And we would vote on the motion. If no motion is made, the policy stays as it's written at this time.
Well, I make a motion to not allow cell phones to be out during the school hours from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. They need to be in a bag or in their pocket or in their vehicle or powered off.
Second.
Okay, and discussion. Now, describe to me how that's different from the policy, just so I'm clear. The current policy.
That's what I keep saying, Clay. The way I read this policy, the motion you just made, that's in place.
Yes.
If the teachers enforce it.
But right now, they get them out during the lunch hour, they get them out between classes, and it doesn't take effect until they go into the classroom. And it's at the teacher's discretion.
But during lunch and during their walk in the hallway, they're not being taught anything.
That's when they're taking pictures of each other in the bathroom and doing junk like that, so.
Well, that policy.
The juice ain't worth the squeeze on that one. And like these kids, most of them don't know how to even speak to one another like this. They will be texting each other from across the table, and it's friggin' weird. But part of that's them just learning how to, just interpersonal communications, period, is at a lunch table. I mean, most of your serious conversations, some of our funnest times in school was at lunch, just talking, whatever, figuring things out.
And that was without a phone.
That was without a phone. And
So
see what they're
that's
missing?
gonna happen anyway,
Yeah.
with or without a phone.
So you're saying that if every kid's got his phone available at lunch, they're gonna choose to, they're all gonna be talking and cutting up like what, the world, or are they gonna,
It won't be the same as it was when we didn't have phones, no. But, I mean,
so if they can't have them out at lunch, then they'll have to figure out how to
I
communicate.
don't necessarily want things to be the same as they were when we were in
Yeah.
high school. I'm not trying to go back in time. What I'm trying to do is eliminate the slavery and the idolizing of the phone. I mean, I could go further into detail about how I think that social media is teaching them to think that their phone is a God, so they don't believe in God. I mean, there's a lot of things that, to me, go along with a phone, and there's not a whole lot of good. But, I don't see how you're gonna police them being off of their data. It's impossible. And the things that 16 to 18-year-old kids, or even we saw 12-year-old kids look at on their phone, they're not trying. Those phones don't come to school for learning purposes. They come to school to take pictures, to video fights, to Snapchat, to Facebook, to Instagram, and to text their buddies. And news travels so fast. Something happens somewhere. Somebody does something last night. Now everybody has a phone. So at 8:00 a.m. in the morning, when old Jim Bob was at the house last night, he got drunk and peed his pants, and now everybody at 8:15 knows that Jim Bob got drunk and peed his pants. Or somebody sent an inappropriate picture, so now it's getting forwarded around. Whatever. Like, everything travels so fast, and it doesn't have to be that way. Things happened in school, before cell phones were allowed, and yeah, people found out about it, but it didn't travel like wildfire. Usually you forget things about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock when you go home. So it doesn't, news travels at warp speed with cell phones. And if they're not there and they're not allowed, then some of those little things go away and everybody's lives will be a whole lot better. But that's my fault,
To me, this is a very gray area. It's hard to be black or white. I mean, I don't want somebody, I guess, telling me what my kid can do with a cell phone. I mean, I don't know. I'm on the fence with all of it, and I feel like we're gonna create a war with parents, probably. It'll be a war just as big as it was back in the COVID days of you better wear a mask and don't come without it, and the parents were all in our faces. It'll be the same. We're gonna see that cycle again.
Yeah,
Because this will create a war
I
if we say no cell phones.
Because a lot of this, we're getting into the level of a parent's responsibility. And like Becky said, it's similar to when you were telling them, do you have to wear a mask or not wear a mask? And we were saying, well, let's let the parent decide. But here we are saying, let's tell them they can't bring their cell phone. It's very similar, and again, I think we have to be cognitive of the, and again, I'm not disagreeing at all with the tone of the argument, because it's true. I hate it as much as anybody, we don't have conversations anymore, but you also have to be a realist. There is a place for them, and they're not going away, and we have to train people to use them in a lifestyle, that they're going to be responsible with it. And we have a policy, and again, cameras on devices are strictly prohibited on school property. So, I'm thinking, we have some things in place that may not have been enforced, like as Mr. Kilzer said, with fidelity. And I think with that in the front end at the beginning of the year, it's made very plain what the rules are and what the consequences are, where maybe it hasn't been done in the past. That might be a starting point. We can always adjust it, but if it hasn't been being enforced properly till now, I think there's an opportunity to see if it can be.
I think that, we've already had, a couple of administrators say that it's impossible to police it, so they don't have enough people and.
Well, that would be the same though if we're saying they can bring it but leave it in the bag, or bring it but leave it in the, there's still gonna be things to police, is what I think is gonna happen.
Well, I can say that I'm gonna be more intentional with the administration to make sure that they understand what the policy reads as. You can't, I understand what, and Clay, everything that you said, I agree with.
Yep.
I lived
100%.
it. I worked that same beat that the high school, I don't think, when they use terminology about it being impossible, I don't believe it's impossible. Is it time consuming? Does it take away from other things that you could be doing? Yes, that's definite. You're gonna have a whole lot more argument over a cell phone issue than you ever had over what academics, what curriculum you're using, or it has been in their practice here. But now, is it impossible? What's not impossible is when something happens, then you go through the policy as it reads now. If the student violated, then they get disciplined because of it. That in itself, as far as, you can't check every device going in, whether or not they're on their own personal data plan or on the school's data plan. But if there's an issue that impacts some discipline event, and the cell phones are a part of that, as that investigation includes, you find out they're on their data plan, that's where the policy kicks back in. Just like dress code, you got a whole variety of people who enforce dress code with more fidelity than others. You can put whatever the issue is, and you'll have one teacher doing it one way, another teacher doing it more strict or less strict. It's just the battle that you fight every day, but you set the culture early. And I would say, again, in my opinion, this is mine, I think that between classes or at lunchtime, kids shouldn't be on their devices. They weren't when y'all were in school. That was just not an option. The teachers had the discretion if they needed it, but that, like I said from last month, that was when we were before having a device per student. We now have a device per student. In fact, in many cases, we have more than enough devices to justify. However, I didn't take into consideration the dual enrollment issues that you raised last month. But, again, the opportunity to use the cell phone on their own discretion time between classes or at lunchtime, is that possible to be enforced? Yes, you can.
As far as the dual enrollment, I traveled the country to 4 different offices, and I don't pack my computer. I go to the office and I log into a computer with my email. Same thing can be done with a dual enrollment class, I feel like. So they can log into any device, I would assume. I would hope.
I also feel like if whoever's teaching that course knows the seriousness that we hold on this policy, then they will look for curriculum that will meet the policy. I think it's been so fluent, just letting them use their cell phones. They come in and see these students that enroll in this dual enrollment class using their phone, and they just say, hey, why don't y'all look up this specific thing? And it's not an issue to them. But if we let them know it's an issue, we don't need to let our students do that. I don't think that'll be an issue. I think they'll just say, okay, we won't look up that particular thing. We'll find something that meets the curriculum and is able to suffice this policy.
Well, it gets into the platforms. That's the issue. In some cases, it's not something that's just because it's so inappropriate or vulgar or whatever. It's just a matter that the platform doesn't necessarily satisfy the filter that we have. But those things are kind of worked out every time one comes up that is a necessity. And then once that necessity is explained and defended, then you can add that. I mean, that's the technology we have. You can add that access. You know, for example, YouTube. YouTube is used a lot for like little video clips. Well, in just a general, situation with the data plan or the internet service, it's not acceptable. But if you've got a YouTube video that you want to show to drive that instructional whatever, then you can gain access to it. You just have to get your technology folks to give you access for that period, just like in this office.
I know that everything that they look at on their phones or personal devices is not negative. I realize that. But if you're in a classroom and you're looking at something other than what you're supposed to be learning, then your attention is not where it should be. So it doesn't matter how good or bad what they're looking at is. It's taken away from the reason that they're at school.
Nobody in this room is disagreeing with that.
Well, then let's change it.
Reading through the policy, the first takeaway, students' personal devices must remain silenced. Do you want to add also in their backpack or in their pocket?
Yes.
Because if they put it in their backpack or in their pocket, and you read through these other bullet points, in my mind, it specifically says they're not supposed to have their phone out, or they'll be disciplined for it. Because, if it's unauthorized use, if a teacher doesn't say, pull your phone out to use it, then that's unauthorized use. If we tell them to put it in their backpack or in their pocket, and they pull it out to use it, without having permission from a teacher or administration, then, that's the policy.
So we need to vote on Clay. Clay, do you want to restate your motion so we can vote properly? Because we need to address your motion, yes.
Sure. I make a motion that each phone should be silenced and put in a pocket or a backpack or left in their vehicles or their lockers and not to be pulled out during the day from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon or when they get out of school, whichever comes first.
Is that only cell phone?
Cell phones and watches, anything that can connect to data.
Does that include laptops?
Can your laptop connect to AT&T?
Through a hotspot, yes.
No, you have to use the school Wi-Fi if you want to be on the internet. That's the whole point. We're able to monitor what's on the school Wi-Fi, but we can't monitor what's on their MiFi.
All right, so that motion's been made and seconded, so a yes vote would adjust the policy, a no vote would leave the policy as is unless another motion is made of any other adjustment, so.
You got the motion. You think so?
Let me kind of restate. You tell me if I'm right, Clay. I'll just restate for Carol. The motion is that a cell phone must remain in a pocket or backpack. And I think that's sufficient because, adding the car and everything, that's, car or backpack, so a cell phone must remain in a pocket or backpack during school hours from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is that right?
And silence, yes, sir.
In silence, yeah, so which is already in there,
Yeah, that's already in the policy.
Right,
We're just tweaking it.
yep,
So these other bullet points in the policy, you agree to those? The cellular data network plans are not permitted. You stated that in your motion.
right.
So that's already in there too.
That's where you policy.
So does this motion not allow any teacher decision to use a cell phone for anything at their discretion?
I don't think you can use it because it just creates a gray area where,
Opens the door.
that, and we provide personal devices for each child, so, and welcome them to bring their laptop if they want to get on our internet, but, I don't see a need for any other data, whatever, any personal devices that can connect to a data plan to be at school or used during school hours. Used during school hours, I don't see the need for it.
Do you have the motion? Yes, sir. All right, so again, I'll just, to rephrase, you've heard the motion as written, so if we have a vote, a yes vote would be to amend the policy, or a no vote would be just to leave the policy as is and encourage greater fidelity in enforcing the policy. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose it.
I oppose. So let's do a roll call vote, because I don't know that we heard that,
Yeah.
heard straightly. So you can vote yes or no. We're gonna vote individually since it was close.
Well, I think I can figure it out. There's only 6 of you. No, it's okay, I got it. Shane Connor,
No.
Jeff Harris,
Yes.
Brandy,
No.
Becky,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Clay.
Yes.
Got 4 yeses, 2 nos.
Okay, 4 yeas, 2 nos, so the policy will be amended to add the verbiage that Clay presented, that Mrs. Carroll has in her notes. So,
Again, I think it'd be a wise idea to get this information out there and really talk to the faculty and administration and let them know that this is something that, we have hashed out for an hour tonight and we expect it to be enforced.
Well, I've got an administrative meeting coming up within weeks where we're gonna be going through all the policy revisions that you folks approved. We will include this in that. We'll push out messaging to all the staff regarding the adjustment to our cell phone use in our handbooks. Now, again, our cell phone use, I don't think that there is a cell phone policy in the lower grades, the K-3s. I don't think that's been an issue in the past.
It's,
But it's a growing issue, so
It
it
is.
probably needs to be addressed eventually.
and they don't silence them and they've got a SpongeBob blaring as loud as it'll go. And you talk about disruptive in
Yeah.
second
Sure.
grade class.
Yeah. So it probably, and I'm not saying it does today, but there's gonna be a day where we need to have a K-12 cell phone policy. It's just been just like our dress code. It's been, like our 4 through 12 has been the dress code. But, And then countywide in-service, which as you looked at your new agenda, you folks are invited to attend. It will be out of the gate. If you come early enough to hear me for my little spiel, I'll include that message. We got to change your practices or change your people, right, Clay?
That's right. Exactly right.
All right. Do have one more piece of business to address in our agenda. It is a recommendation that was added this week to the board to approve the adoption of a pre-K textbook and curriculum. And I'll have Troy talk a little bit more about that before we vote.
As your adjusted or revised agenda reads, the voluntary pre-K program is led by Dr. Judd. She and the pre-K teachers deciding what curriculum choices to consider. Again, there is a short list of state-approved curriculum choices that are available, that the state already vets as acceptable. Among those, the teachers and Dr. Judd, and this is an email I received from Dr. Judd to provide the evidence, is that they collectively decided to choose the name that had been provided for you, which is Connect 4 Learning, Kaplan Connect 4 Learning. It was also during that same time that Dr. Judd realized that the board needs to approve this. Now, as far as the K-12 curriculum, it's required by your duties, that as part of your job description as far as a board member. There's still some question mark about the voluntary pre-K, since it's a different, even though it's under our same umbrella of education, they operate by a different set of rules because it is a voluntary. It's not a required schooling for that grade level. However, just as a safety measure to make sure we cross all of our T's and dot our I's, we want to include that here. So my recommendation is to follow what Dr. Judd, and as she reflected, the other pre-K teachers decided on that specific Kaplan Connect 4 Learning curriculum.
Is there a motion to approve this curriculum?
Make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. Next, we have a portion of our agenda for updates, and we always give Mr. Kilser a moment to share with the vision and things going on within the school district, and have that opportunity tonight.
Well, and I will just start off, just to let you know, Wednesday, board chair and myself, I've received the superintendent evaluation results. I've had just a little bit of time to reflect on it. At next month's meeting, I'll give you a little bit more of the meat of the plan or the action steps that I'll take to improve. I look forward to always to see where I can improve. The cycle of events that we do here is when we have a set of data, we look for successes. So I'll start off. One success is my lowest mark in the past was vision. Of course, that's been the focus this whole past school year, to really focus on what the vision for the district is. Well, it was not the highest, but it was the next highest. So it was on up there. So it's been, as a success, it's not the lowest mark that I've had in the past. Then you say, well, where do you need to target for improvement? Well, right now the board relations has gotten me at a failing grade, 68.7. So as a lifelong learner, which I am, I'm not going to be hypocritical and say that I'm above reproach and don't need to have room for improvement. So again, as my focus will be board relationship, I'll be targeting those items. I have, again, done a little bit of the research on it. I'll have, like I said, more action steps to take for the next meeting that you folks can hold me accountable to seeing if I'm making those gains. So that'll just make me a better superintendent, which is my intent.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to that next month. Any other updates that we need to share, or any questions from the board on ongoing?
I can speak one more thing about our budget. Stacy had asked me a few days ago, because here we are in the month of July. If you remember from our last month's May meeting, we were still waiting for, our last month's June meeting, we were still waiting for a June estimate for our TISA. Today I got confirmation from the point of contact at the state level, there's not gonna be a June estimate. And they told us today, or told me today, that before the end of the week, and I'm thinking, okay, today's Thursday. Before the end of the week, Sherlock Holmes, that may be tomorrow, we're gonna get the July final. So that's the actual dollar amount that we will be receiving. All of these estimates that goes back from April to through June, if you got a June, is just giving you that likely to be the plan that you approach for your budget overall. So, but I was told by Mary Ann Dursky today in an email that I'll be receiving that before the end of this week. Now, again, if you know from a local government side, which is a 30% portion of our budget, we're on a continuum budget right now. They are not approving any new budgets, and the forecast that Barry Smith and Tim Crow confirmed is going to be the end of August before they're even holding themselves accountable to say they'll have a budget passed by then. So it's not going to be done before, because I asked questions to Tim. So we are on a continuum of previous year's budget, which means that all of the raises that we had added to this, that you folks and the county commission has approved, a 7% raise across the board, that will happen, but it's not going to happen right now. It's got to wait until after the approval of the August 31 date, and we will retroactively adjust that. So nobody's going to lose 2 months worth of extra 7%. They won't see it yet until the budget's approved, but that will be adjusted, and they'll be getting the, if it was already approved like it has been for all these previous years. So I have.
When they do the retro pay, I don't know if this happened in the past. Do they do lump sum, or will they?
It will be
break it
adjusted
down?
over the
It will be a
month.
lump sum, the adjustment will be a lump sum with a regular payroll.
Okay.
It will be all caught up on
One time.
Right. Any other questions or updates needed from the board?
If I could say one more thing
Sure.
about the TCAP and end of course, we're getting more data in from the state. Again, we're still embargoed, that's why nothing's been really released. Individual conversations, again, school staff have been receiving some content as far as what we've gone from the raw scores, now we've got our cut scores, so we know what the difference is between a below, approaching, meeting, or exceeding expectations. But once the state gives us clearance to go ahead and release this more to the public, more information will be shared. But right now, we're looking at achievement measures around meeting their annual measurable objectives, AMOs is what it's abbreviated to say. And some of our grades and specific subject areas have greater success than what we've seen in the past. Others are still looking for that success. But there's plenty of places that we see work that's been producing fruit, but others we're going to be targeting to improve. So, it's, again, as the data gives us the opportunity to express it or put it out to the public more, you guys will be given more of that information.
Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, should we tell them about the previous capital project meeting and where we're at on that? So we've had a couple of emails go back and forth today, and Coach He's had a good idea about possibly moving the ACTO. We're just trying to get the location set for sure. We did get some updated drawings, and we're progressing along, getting closer and closer to breaking ground. So finally making some progress and getting everybody engaged, so looking forward to that, but no for sure location yet. We were just looking at where would be the best and really the cheapest as far as building site plans go. If we put it where we were the ACTO where we were wanting to put it, then it would require lots of dirt work and redirection of some drainage and stuff. So we're just trying to seek out the best possible location currently. So no real good news yet as far as new news, but getting closer.
Yeah, and I'm promised with, and of course Ben was there too. So this was a meeting that occurred Monday afternoon. And Doug Short, our, the architect that the board decided on, has been drawing up preliminary stuff, but trying to get it within its most cost-effective way. That's why the meeting for Monday was Doug's request, so that we could consider some options for relocating the buildings. But then Britt just popped out yesterday with me a different location to consider, and that was pushed out to everybody, that as far as the ones who have replied back to me, seems to be a more promising site. A lot less dirt work, probably no dirt work with preliminary
Yeah.
stuff. With the utilities already there.
I mentioned that pretty asphalt that we were gonna.
I know.
But I bothered them.
Hey, and the ability to add on to the parking lot down at the lower level.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Grass lot or whatever, so some spillage parking, if you will. So it's definitely a good idea.
Yep.
First one you've had, Coach Eads, but it's.
Somebody write it down. It's in the minutes.
Yeah. Now, I also want to say, guys, I really appreciate you guys for listening to my point of view and understanding and supporting that. So, thank you for that. I wish that I could have been there. I had some important work, things to take care of this week in North Dakota that I could not miss whatsoever. But I really do appreciate you guys allowing me to meet with you virtually and for hearing my point of view on the cell phone policy, so thank you for that. I know it took more time than anybody wanted to take, but I think it's worth it, and I really appreciate you guys.
Anything else need to come before the board?
Well, I'd like to again invite you to the in-service day. The countywide in-service day is gonna be Thursday, July the 27th, so it's gonna be before our next board meeting. It'll be at the high school cafeteria. You guys are welcome to come all day long, but especially during the time that we begin to recognize our retirees, our teachers of the year, those other recognitions, those longevity pins that we provide, and then the lunch that includes. But, Dr. Jill Faulkner really is the one that facilitates and leads that charge about what the agenda will be. But I confirmed with her, and it'll be a great meal. It's a great way to start the year off. Everybody's excited about the opportunities, and we'll be focused on how we're gonna make 23-24 the best year ever.
And we
Is there-
go ahead.
Is there food there?
Yes, and dessert.
Hey, I'm in.
Let's go.
And of course, our next board meeting will be Tuesday, August 15th. We get quite the break here, so meeting will be here in the conference room in the Board of Education. At that being said, that's the end of our agenda, so we'll declare this meeting adjourned.